exciting. But let's hop down to our main feature match because Roger Sulaiman's here. We talked about it before. He loves playing control decks, and we have him in the feature. No better way to start our year than with our reigning champion. And this is one of the coolest things about playing the NRG series. Like we talked about, Dom, you get to play against people like Roger Sulaiman coming out to all events. Ian Ashley here looks to be playing Rakdos Scam. Dom, this is a deck you actually did very well with recently in the Mana Trader series. Talk to me a little bit about this deck and sort of the matchup.
Yeah, I've gone to the dark side. I have become part of the Scam fam, and yeah, the deck is fundamentally very powerful. Can do all of these various linear things, lots of these one card wins with stuff like Blood Moon, Doughty Voidwalker, and so on. But you can also play the kind of classic mid-range Rakdos game with stuff like Thoughtseize, Ragavan, and so on as well. The Bant control matchup is interesting because they have so much interaction that you can't really go all in on one thing and expect that to just take it down by itself. So we can expect a grindy slugfest here between defending champion Roger Sulaiman, who hopefully has finished sideboarding from his finals match however many months ago, and Ian Ashley here on Rakdos Scam.
Yeah. So, Dom, who is sort of favored in this matchup? You mentioned Scam sort of has these one-card wins, right? They can do things like get an early grief out. They can, Blood Moon you, things like that. Raja's deck, though, is really good at breaking up sort of, decks that lean on one axis. Is the Rakdos Scam deck quick enough, or can it actually play a long enough game to have a real back and forth here with Raja, maybe even after post-board?
It can play longer games. You have these cards like Fable of the Mirror Breaker, of course, multi-format All-Star, and Season Pyromancer, letting you really go toe-to-toe in the grindy matchups, which this certainly is. And then stuff like Blood Moon, right, where against a normal Blue-Eye control deck, Blood Moon can still steal some games, but Roger Sulaiman is full-on bank control. We saw him use his set of sideboard endurances to great effect, and he even has stuff like Broker's Charm, like a Roger Sulaiman classic here. So this is a full Bant mana base, and as a result, Blood Moon can really do a number on him, even though cards like Broker's Charm give him a lot of way to destroy enchanties, as the kids say.
Nice. We're getting a little high roll action here as the players are, deciding who's going to go first or second. I guess no even odds is respected by Raja. I guess, despite being one of the most dominant players in NRG history, he has flaws, and it's really humbling for the rest of us to know that, even people like Raja succumb to high roll.
Yeah, are you a find the creature man, or what's your speed?
I prefer rock, paper, scissors, personally, but that's me.
Yeah, a lot of guys can't find the creature, so you want something that's a little more equitable there. You got rock, paper, scissors. You have the, what is it? The rock, lizard, paper, tiger, whatever the unglued ones are. Those are a classic. But yeah, sometimes you got to go with a good old die roll, flip a coin, what have you.
Yep. Yeah, and we see Raja here taking a mulligan. He kind of knows like, hey, that hand didn't function. Probably was a situation with all or no lands. He didn't really take a long look at it. And Raja, like I mentioned before, is one of our most dominant players in NRG series history. Not only did he win our championship last year, he also top eighted 2 events back to back, and then lost his win in for the third, and then ended up topping a third event just 2 events later. So Raja is not a stranger to doing well anywhere. He also has, some GP top 8, some good Pro Tour finishes. Raja is one of our strongest players and someone that, is going to know his deck and know what he's looking for.
We mentioned you can make it to the championships either by spiking an event or by putting up some consistency over the year. It turns out if you just spike every event, that is a form of consistency in its own right.
That's right. Yeah. And Raja's here to sort of, he already has it in fight, but now he's here just to game, play a little bit love magic, and see if he can, rack up maybe that sort of, NRG Hall of Fame type thing, as we do lead on a Ketria Triome and a passing of the turn. Sort of, a sign here too that Raja, is a Bant control deck, but plays more Triumph than just even the Bant one.
Yeah, trying to enable stuff like Prismatic Ending, Leyline Binding, trying to enhance those cards. And that full art Ketria Triome, putting us to the test here as commentators in the booth here early on Saturday morning. Really hard to distinguish between those triumphs, but we're on it, Mason. We've got this.
Look, that is my superpower. I'm mediumly funny, and I know all the alt arts. I also play with that one, so we're good. But, it did catch me there for a half second. As we do see an Evoke to Grief discarding a Terminate. Everyone's got fancy arts now, Dom. You have to be on your game. And as we are kind of the NRG series, and it looks like Raja is taking a minute to think. Raja could use a card like Solitude here, Dom, to answer the grief. In your experience, how does that line up? Oh, it looks like he's not going to do it. He reveals his hand of Solitude, looks to be a Counterspell, Chalice of the Void, and I believe another land.
It's a tough decision, because if you Solitude the Grief, you're still losing another card after that. So you're down 3 cards, effectively. But then if you don't do that, you know that there's a window for the Solitude to get taken, and then for a Feign Death or Undying Malice style effect on the Grief to bring it back, let them get another card from your hand, and keep the Grief around as well. So you're losing a lot of cards either way here, but it's a tough choice as to what you want to do. And yeah, so we see Solitude get taken in response uh, to that effect there. So already it is turn one, and both players have 2 cards left in their hands at this point.
Yeah, Raja, I don't know if the players noticed, the last card was a Leyline Binding that ended up getting taken by the Grief. Raja has no other lands in hand. He has kept a 1-lander on 6 cards. And Ian was like, hey, listen, I'm going to take this Leyline Binding. If you want to discard 2 of your last cards to answer my Grief, you're welcome to. As Raja just drew and passed the turn. And Ian has played a Blackleaf Cliffs and passed back to Raja.
So there is risk involved in keeping a one-lander always, but I think Raja knows a lot of the games against this deck, some of them end very quickly, but a lot of them will go super long. You will have time to draw out of that mana screw, and you want as many action spells as possible to let you play that longer game.
Yeah, we see Roger here. His hand is Chalice Board, Counterspell, Unknown. Grabs a Hallowed Fountain. Dom, is Chalice on 1 really effective in this matchup? Is this something that Roger wants to prioritize now, or is he getting his fetch just out of the way so he gets Counterspell up? It looks
It
like he
can
is doing
be,
Chalice.
yeah. So Chalice comes down, and that's going to shut off any of these Feign Death, Undying Mouse effects. You have to figure if Ian had one of those, you would have tried to pair it with that Grief out on the first turn. But if Ian draws Ragavan at some point, right, that now is off the table. A top deck Thoughtseize no longer can attack Raja's hand, so it's not game over like it is in some matchups, but still can be effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as we do see Ian here play a Bloodstained Mire. Looks like passing the turn back. And it looks like Ian did keep that Grief plus Undying Malice on turn 1, sort of trying to go all in. And, Raja was on a Mold-a-Six, but had the Solitude. And so now we're seeing what happens sometimes, as you called it, the scam fam. Sometimes, you live by the scam, you die by the scam. And you have to sort of hope to draw into something else. As it looks like Raja did draw into an island as picking up the Kaheera.
Yeah, Ian's not doing anything, and so Raja can take the turn off, pay 3 mana, add his companion to his hand, and you never really want to be in a spot where you're hardcasting Kaheera, but that can come up. But also in this control deck that's reliant on Solitude, that's a white card to pitch that you can just pick up on demand.
Yep. As it does look like Ian is just going to go and get the Blood Crypt out of the deck. Raja's maybe, Raja knows there isn't a Blood Moon. That would have been a key moment for Ian to slam on the last turn, especially with Raja not having any basics, choosing to fetch up the Hallowed Fountain to have the white mana. So Raja's got to be knowing that, like, okay, well, now I just need to fight through whatever the big next threat is. And if you're Ian, Dom, what card are you hoping to manifest to the top of your deck?
So at this point, he really wants something like Fable of the Mirror Breaker, Season Pyromancer. As you get more and more lands, you start hardcasting your Griefs and Furies instead of just evoking them. But he wants something to apply some pressure, force Raja to do something. Because as the game goes along, that does always tend to favor the control deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Castle Lockbane though, that might be the card he would manifest if given the choice there. So that's going to let him hardcast those evoke creatures and also just keep drawing cards, outpower the control deck on that axis. So it looks like this is a Dauthi Voidwalker here from Ian. Not the turn 2 play that you draw it up as, but still a fine here nonetheless.
Yeah, Dauthi, very good, just sort of applying pressure. And, if Raja plays any sort of big card advantage card like a Memory Deluge, that's going to get exiled. And then Ian can actually cast it too if Ian starts to run low on stuff here. As it does look like Raja started to quickly tap through. We might be seeing the old, it looks like a Teferi Time Raveler is actually coming down as we're going to unsummon the Dauthi Voidwalker and take a new card for Raja here, trying to find those land drops.
You can end up in these weird spots where the Voidwalker exiles one of their counterspells, and you're the control deck now. You have that counterspell ready to go. But Voidwalker back in the hand for now. It's going to take another turn or two to become relevant here. We'll see if Ian can pair that Voidwalker with anything else, or if he's stuck in 1 spell per turn territory for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do see Ian sort of taking a second, evaluating sort of what to do. Probably drew a pretty good spell. That is the case. If Ian didn't have anything going on, we just would see a slam of the Voidwalker and a pass back to the turn. Looks like Ian is going to play the Dauthi Voidwalker, decides this is the better threat to develop on this board, and just pass the turn back. You see Raja here, really heads up play on Raja's part. Raja knows his deck's very mana intensive and doesn't want to get got by anything. And so he's just going to untap and then fetch his, land in his upkeep. Probably going to mean the basic that way so that he doesn't take extra damage as he does draw up the planes here. But sort of a smart thing to do, right? Waiting on your fetches there, Dom. Is that something that you find yourself doing a lot in these sort of situations?
Yeah, it looks like that Windswept Heath should be exiled if the Voidwalker is hanging out in the battlefield there. So we'll let them know about that. But yeah, Raja, especially the ability to get basic planes against a deck which has Blood Moon, always has to be at the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, never lowering his shields, being ready to go. And we're going to see just a tick up the Teferi Time Raveler. That's really fun. Sorcery split at instant speed. That would be my way of describing Teferi Time Raveler is the word fun.
Yeah, but people love Teferi. No complaints about that card. Never seen anyone bad word to say about it. It's universally beloved. So here is Prismatic Ending taking down the Darthy Voidwalker.
Yeah. And we see it play the Polluted Delta and a pass of the turn. Raja just, when to get rid of the Dothi right away. Maybe there's some card he's thinking about playing around there. But, we see a grief coming down for Raja. I'm sorry, for Ian against Raja, as Raja does use that counterspell he's been holding on to since turn 1.
Yeah, the grief is going to take the counterspell either way, so may as well trade with it on the stack there. And so Roger, not under much pressure. Ian has a few tools to work with, doesn't have much going on. So this might be a good window if there is another Planeswalker or something for Roger to press his advantage. Just has to resort to playing Kaheera instead, though.
Yeah, well, the orphans are guarded with Kaheera in play. A 3/2 vigilance is not nothing to laugh at, and we've seen Raja throughout the year do this a bunch where he just sort of plays this card and sort of turns into like a Delver role almost of just kill everything and just sort of hit you a couple times with cards like Solitude getting anthemed up due to Orphanguard. It's actually not the worst play you've ever seen. It's something that you really get by just choosing to only play the evoke elementals in your deck along with some other weird tech cards from time to time. As we do see another Dothi Voidwalker here for Ian.
Yeah, we really are touching the void over here. And it looks like this is Terminate on the Kaheera. So, funnily enough, there aren't that many removal spells in this scam deck, and some of those are Lightning Bolt, Fatal Push cards, which will get shot off by the Chalice. So, one of the few ways left to kill the Kaheera, I guess Fury would be one of those two. But I think we're looking to hardcast that at some point, deal with the Teferi, and leave a big threat lying around.
Yeah. And yeah, Ian, we mentioned this earlier, sort of like went all in on the scam, got Raja down to low cards. Raja started hitting lands. Ian's hit land drops, and we're back at parity here. And while it isn't exactly how you want your scam game to go early, it does sort of show, right? Like in these sort of matchups, Dom, you don't have to like win on turn 2, essentially. You can actually play a longer game. And we're seeing Ian still stay in things right now, thanks to that early grief forcing so many material from Raja.
Yeah, this deck can win as early as turn 3, right? You make a 4/4 Fury on turn 1, back it up with a Voidwalker, a Ragavan, some other threat, but you can also win these 7 or 8 turn games that go very long.
You're going to see a dice on top of the Teferi, another card there in exile. That's because they have a void counter on them from Dothi Voidwalker. Those are the cards that Ian Ashley here is going to be able to play. And Dom, we're going to see a cycle of a Triome here. Raja's done drawing lands once it gets something different. Do you think this deck gets an unfair name by being called Scam?
You can understand why people who are on the receiving end of turn 1 double grief or fury would describe it in those terms. But I think it maybe does oversimplify what the deck is capable of. Where you can run the scam, or you can just play some good, honest, fair magic as well.
As we do see Ian Ashley playing a Blackleaf Cliffs tap and thinking about the hand. I do think Ian probably has something like a Fury. It looks like he's thought about it. Does have access to Castle Lochthwain if there isn't any other play that Ian wants to do. We know Ian does have the Dothi Voidwalker there on something. And Ian slams the Blood Moon. We're going to see Raja respond and fetch up some basics here. Definitely starting the Polluted Delta. Unsure how many planes Raja has, but we're definitely going to see the island come down.
Yeah, there's kind of a limit to how many other basics you can play in your deck that has stuff like Counterspell, maybe Archmage's Charm, and so on. But yeah, we have 2 basic islands and the basic planes, so we can continue playing Magic here under the Blood Moon. Funnily enough, there is certainly no basic forest, and so Broker's Charm, one of the cards that could kill Blood Moon, is going to be offline if Raja draws it in future turns.
Yeah. And Raja, I do believe, does play 2 of those. So it's it's a tech pet card of his that is sort of good in these sort of spots, but also does have the awkwardness with the actual Blood Moon. Looks like Raja maybe actually is still responding to the Blood Moon. I saw him pick up his lands there for a second. This is sometimes what will happen, Players will stop and think for a little bit here. Looks like Raja might be okay with it happening. Dom, while we're waiting for Raja's going to flash an address down here and get a little redraw action. Do you know why the deck was originally called Scam?
I'm not sure. The whole history of the deck is a little hard to piece together. Do you know the origin there more than I do?
I do. I've heard it. And so now you can pass this on for your podcast. I've been waiting for you to mention this. I felt like anyone besides me would know it's you. So Scam, the original deck was a black-white deck, Dom. So it was Stoneforge Card Advantage Mystic. Because the deck would play all the same cards, but they had the Stoneforge Mystic. And that is why the Scam name started. The moniker.
Is it bad if I think that's kind of underwhelming compared to what it could have been?
Yeah, it's very bad and it's very awful as a joke / true story. And now you have to live with that knowledge like I do.
God, I wish I could put the veil of ignorance back over myself and just live without that knowledge. But here we are. You have
Mhm.
opened my mind, and this is one of the few checklist cards in Modern here. Fable of the Mirror Breaker, staple of decks like Creativity, but also does great work in Scam as well.
Staple of Magic these days, right? Seeing play in
Yeah.
every single one of the formats. Powerhouse and Standard, Powerhouse and Pioneer, Powerhouse here, great role player in Legacy. This card, Dom, if red does it, then it's on Fable the Mirror Breaker. We got treasures, we got looting, we got copying, we got attacking. It matters. And right here, this card is actually going to unlock Ian's hand of the double black cards with the treasures if Raja doesn't have an answer for the Goblin. And you have to think that most things that can answer the Goblin in Raja's deck also answer the Blood Moon. So Ian's going to be able to cast cards like Dothi that did get locked out by that Blood Moon now that this card's resolved.
And the second chapter is going to let him cash in dead feign deaths, fatal pushes, all of these Ragavan, even these one drops which aren't doing anything. Cash those in for random cards. See if you can improve on that.
Mm-hmm. We are seeing Raja tap his basics. Probably a good sign for Raja if he's doing that. Looks like he's going to reconsider a little bit here. And is just going to do another dress down, get another draw. And we're seeing this from Raja. Raja plays multiple main deck dress downs because in a lot of ways they're like counterspells, right, Dom?
Yeah, it's often even better than a counterspell or against a board full of Urza Saga tokens or something. You clear it all up and draw a card at the same time. And then the floor on the card still high. You just draw a card, cycle it, add instant speed. So you have this buyout in case it's not good. And if it's good, it's often really, really good. It's the best card you could ask for.
Speaking of really good, at end of turn there, Raja Sulaiman channeled Otawara, bounced the Blood Moon back to Ian's hand, and now we have Counterspell Magic up, we have everything, and we have this dress down in play. Not going to be super important here, but it's something where, if Raja wants to invoke a Solitude or something like that, he can do that and still hold mana up. He has a lot of plays available to him here.
It could actually hardcast a Solitude again now too, having that double white now that the Blood Moon is gone for a turn.
Yep. We're seeing Raja just sort of tank here. Looks like he's doing the classic sort of planning out, like, okay, I know the Blood Moon's probably going to come back down. Is there anything I want to do before the Blood Moon comes? Or do I just want to, be reactive and see maybe, Ian might also, it's going to get that rummage off the Fabled Mirror Breaker, might draw a card that's more tempting than Blood Moon, and maybe Raja can, get a little cheeky and get another turn with full uses of mana. As we do see Raja tapping his basic islands, probably a good sign that he has some answer for Blood Moon as he casts Archmage's Charm to draw 2 cards.
And Archmage's Charm is so flexible that you never know if you're happy if the opponent is spending it drawing 2 cards instead of just countering your next spell. It's a sign of weakness and a sign of strength at the same time.
I think the ultimate sign of strength here is Raja Archmage's Charms takes the Goblin. That way he can make treasures and play under the Blood Moon. Doesn't even counter the Blood Moon.
that is also I say a hidden mode of Archmage's Charm, a pretty tempting mode in this spot as well.
Yeah, it's definitely aligned. I'm sure, that might be what Raja was thinking about. All 3 modes on Archmage's Charm were surprisingly live there, as we do see an Undying Evil discarded to the Fable of the Mirror Breaker Chapter 2 in order to rummage some new cards. Looks like Ian might have drawn a Thoughtseize. Yeah, and we're going to cast Thougtseize. We're going to look at our hand here, trigger, and yeah, we still have Chalice of the Void.
The only hand Ian is looking at here is his own, to see what we can do after we just cast out Thoughtseize into the Chalice.
Listen, I respect it. Raja just tweeted that he hasn't played Modern in like 3 months or whatever. You've got to Chalice check him. You just got to go for what you can get,
They can miss it. They can miss it. Mm-hmm. So we'll rumble on in here with the Goblin token, get a treasure. Let's see if we have any useful follow-up. We saw 2 new cards here with the Fable, so hopefully one of those can amount to something for Ian.
Yeah. Let's look like we're getting the treasure from our table spotters. We have, people with tokens and everything like that. That's how we're able to afford those big old $10 shaman tokens thanks to great followers like you. So if you're liking the stream and you like Paper Magic, make sure to follow. Drop a Twitch Prime if you got it, and we can keep this magic coming to you, as it does look like Ian is playing a mountain for turn, one of the Unfinity lands, little space action, as it does look like Blood Moon might be getting cast here in a second.
Blood Moon is back, baby. It's good again.
Yeah, and this is a big sign, right? Like last turn, Raja used a counter spell in order to draw 2 cards. So Raja might have an answer to this Blood Moon or something, but he is not so worried about it that, someone of his caliber is not just going to throw away the counter spell and forget that the Blood Moon he just unsummoned.
And crucially, with Basic Island and Basic Plains, we have 3 different colors for Prismatic Ending under the Blood Moon, if that's going to be our solution to it. But it looks like nothing of that sort forthcoming just yet. We do we do have a Haviva in the chat saying that the feature match players keep nabbing the Goblin Shamans. Some real petty theft going on there. And yeah, if you're going to be wandering away with any tokens, Goblin Shamans are good ones to take because we got some soldiers, we got insects, got whatever. Those are 20 cents. The dealers will just hand those out to you like candy. Goblin Shamans, those are a pretty penny. Those tokens are some of the most valuable cards in the set. So got to make sure we keep track of all of those.
100%. Dom, I pulled up Ian's deck here to look over some stuff, just to see things. And Ian actually only has 2 Thoughtseize in the main deck. Actually doesn't have as many one drops I think as normal. He still has, the 6 Undying effects and everything. But really sort of got, a big top end where we have Crocs in the main deck too. So, Ian's got a lot of action going on. So we are going to see Prismatic Ending here. Looks like it's going to target the Blood Moon. Oh, we're maybe not.
And Fable does transform into Reflection of Geeky Jiki here. So, final chapter of that enabled. And if Fable survives through this turn, then any future incarnation or season Pyromancer or anything like that, we're going to double up on that real quick.
100%, yeah. What is this telling you, Dom, about, Raja decided on all the cards on board to go after the Dothi Voidwalker? What does that signal to you?
Hey, there are just so many threats that have to be dealt with here, and this is one of the strengths of the Scam deck, is you can present several threats at the same time, attack from all these different angles, and if the opponent's just trading 1-for-1, it can be hard to keep up with all of that sometimes.
100%. As we do see Fury get hard casted here, we still have a black mana up, and along with our 2 treasures. And Raja draws and then picks up his cards. Raja Sulaiman defeated, fought hard, got out of the scam there for a second, but ultimately was succumbed to all of the threats that Ian was able to present. So that's going to be Raja on the draw there for game number 2. And wow, what a game 1.
Yeah, we saw that game potentially swing on the first turn where Ian had the grief, had the choice of what to take, maybe made things a little harder for himself by not taking the Solitude, but the game went on and you saw the flexibility of the Scam deck where the Scam deck won a game that went, I don't even know how many turns, but probably double digits from both sides.
Yeah, that had to be at least 8, 9 turns and closing on 10. Let's go look at some deck lists, though, see what the sideboard, see what the players have. Let's see who we're going to be looking at first here. If we have maybe Ian. Here's Ian's deck. So Dom, sort of looking over Ian's deck here in the sideboard, we have a couple cards. We have like 3 Engineered Explosives, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Enlicensors, 2 Torok, a Kolaghan's Command, a Necromentia, a Magus of the Moon, a Hidetsu who consumes all, a Fatal Push, and the ever trusty old Lightning Bolt here in the sideboard. Dom, you're a Rakdos Scam lover. What are you going to bring in this matchup? How does he gonna make so much room for? He has so many cool cards to bring in. You just mentioned like 6, 7 cards. Are there anything that Ian's going to just immediately cut from his deck in this matchup? Awesome, great. Well, let's see if we can check out Raja's deck. I have a feeling, just called a gut from the old Twitter, that this might be the same deck we saw that win our championship here. Looks to be the same from as far as I can tell from when we last talked about it, but let's go over it once again. We have 4 Endurance, 2 Aether Gust, 2 Dovin's Veto, 2 March of the Lily Light, and then a Subtlety, a Veil of Summer, a Supreme Verdict, a Ray of Revelation, and that Kaheera the Orphanguard we saw picked up in game number 1. Dom, what are you liking out of this sideboard? Yeah, those sort of cards are really good, like you mentioned. Ray Revelation's also like a pretty powerful card for answering Blood Moon and Fable the Mirror Breaker. So you're gonna have a lot there, like you mentioned. Just in case chat didn't hear Dom, if chat wants to let us know, we're trying to fix the Dom problem there. But yeah, Veil Summer, Ray Revelation, those sort of cards jump out immediately. Yeah, and what are the sort of some of the cards that you're not loving if you're Raja? We saw the Chalice of the Void in that first game. It stopped the Thoughtseize, but like, what are you thinking? Like, is that card a card that he wants to lean on in games number 2 and 3? Where your head sort of at, Dom?
Off half their hand. Sometimes it's going to do literally nothing, but depending on how much stuff you want to bring in, maybe you have to leave that card in the deck, and maybe you think that Gambler's worth it, even if there's other stuff that could switch in instead.
Nice. Well, we're gonna have players shuffling up here. As for game number 2, Ian Ashley is up a game over our reigning players champion, Raja Sulaiman. Shuffle on up. It's gonna be exciting. And is this a matchup where Ian's gonna want, you think, to sort of aggressively mulligan now that he knows he's playing against Raja's deck for the early grief stuff? Or is he like really happy with a hand that's something like, a Thoughtseize, a Fable, and a bunch of lands?
Yeah, I think you would happily take that second hand. And this isn't a matchup where you want to be aggressively mulliganing, going all in on one particular angle. As we mentioned in game 1, Roger's deck has so much removal, so many counterspells and so on, that you can't just rely on one thing. And you'd rather have a 7-card hand that can just trade 1-for-1 and kind of go toe-to-toe in a fair game.
Nice. Dom, what's your sort of pick for the strongest deck in Modern? Because I know, you've been playing this deck a little bit. I know you play Amulet. I know that you're not one to normally just gravitate towards the strongest deck and play it all the time, but I am curious about your perspective here. Well, Dom, I would call you as you're an innovator. I feel like you're always sort of looking for the angle to attack things. And I think it gives you a really good eye on what's the best because you succeed often doing that. And so you're sort of able to see the weakness in the armor and pierce it. So if you're telling people what you're sort of trying to attack, I think that's really informative. And also, I would argue, often quite right.
I'm open-minded, Mason. I reach out to the decks that are unloved and that no one else is thinking about, and I make them know that they're valued and wanted. But I mean, I semi-seriously say that I think the 2 best decks in Modern are Scam and Amulet, or Scamulet, if you will, and that Scam beats Amulet, so Scam is the best deck in Modern. QED, you heard it here first. But yeah, I mean, I think if I was one of the 285 people in the room for this tournament, I think I'd be slinging up Grief and Fury the way that Ian is.
What's so appealing about this sort of deck to you? Because we talked a little bit last game about how some players think it's a scam, actually, right? And the deck's gimmicky, but you're someone who's succeeded at the Pro Tour level. We've seen you dominate circuits like the SCG. You've done really well on Mana Traders as well and on Magic Online. What about this deck is having a player of your caliber sort of draw to it? Because clearly it's not just a cheese deck, right? You're not just sort of all in gambling. Someone like you isn't going to do that. What is the appeal?
I've been known to gamble in my time, and this deck can do that. And this is one of the biggest draws to a deck, in my view, that you have these nut draws that can just steal games by themselves. You don't get extra credit for winning a tough game instead of an easy one. Give me all the easy games I can get. And this deck has a lot of easy games. You have the double grief, double fury games. You have the turn 1 Ragavan that just runs away with the game. But if Voidwalker's good, then sometimes Voidwalker wins the game by itself. You got Blood Moon. This entire deck is just a stock full of pennies that can just bludgeon the certain opponents. But then, as we saw game 1, you can play the longer games. You can play interactive games. You have tough decisions with your Thoughtseizes, with your grief. So you have a lot of agency, which is the thing a lot of people like. But you also have a lot of free wins as well.
Speaking of agency, we're seeing Raja turn 1, Polluted Delta turn 2. We have a Bloodstained Mire from Ian. Evoking the grief, getting rid of Thoughtseize. That's got to be a sign if you're Raja that something's up over there. And we're going to see Raja actually evoke back Subtlety, Storm Count 2. And we're going to see Ian double check the Subtlety, this thing with on the board. Can I interact with this at all? And that is going to actually put the grief either on top or bottom of Ian's deck. Up to Ian there. And Ian does have another grief in hand. So we could see Ian go a lot of different ways here.
Yeah, Raja kind of going down 2 cards, almost forcible Ian's turn 1 play. And so yeah, but both players trading off a bunch of cards with these pitch spells in the first turn in a manner that is kind of reminiscent of Legacy. And this is one of the big fundamental changes brought to the format by the first Modern Horizons and then Modern Horizons 2 is these free spells, right? Where any previous idea of mana efficiency or double spelling or anything like that, you really have to update that now with the elemental cycle.
100%. And we're seeing Ian here fetch it in response to the Subtlety. That way, if Ian wants to put the card back on top of the deck, Ian for sure has the land lined up at the land that Ian wants. Looks like Ian's wanting a swamp here. And yeah, like you said here, the free spells really change the dynamic of Modern and Magic in general, and we're seeing just how much these sort of games happen. And it leads to more grindy games when we're trading cards in order to prevent each other from doing stuff. As it looks like we might be getting a Thoughtseize. Wow, Ian had a lot of discard. I believe one of the last cards in Ian's hand is a Grief as well, as Raja is not going to escape the discard this game, as Archmage's Charm, Counterspell, Prismatic Ending, and Flooded Strand are revealed.
Yeah, and this hand goes back to what we were saying, right? Just 3 interactive spells. So tough to know exactly which one to take. If you think you can sneak something under the counter spells, then you take the Prismatic Ending maybe and just ride that threat. If you think you're going to be playing a longer game, maybe you take either Counterspell, that's the efficient answer, or Archmage's Charm, the hyper-flexible answer that can do basically anything.
Yeah, and Dom, I think I don't want to be too predictive here, but I'm pretty sure Ian's last 2 cards are Grief and an Undying Effect. And then his top card's definitely a Grief. So Raja might be on nothing at the start of turn 3 here.
Yeah, Ian's going to be on basically nothing too, but one of the things about Scam is you break that symmetry, your nothing is a 4-3 Grief, or it's a 4-4 Fury. Like, you have the biggest thing left on the board when that dust settles.
Yeah, Raja there, end of turn, fetch to Raffine's Tower. You're not going to trick me, Raja, with the ult arts, and then plays a Scalding Tarn and passes the turn.
Yeah, that is... I want to say that's a Raffine's Tower. Am I falling at that hurdle? Okay,
no,
okay, still got it.
You nailed
it.
Yeah, we got it. Raja,
and that's a blood crypt?
That's blood crypt. There's a blood crypt. It's all last game. I gotta say, I love Ian Ashley's deck. Very fancy. I love, they have the old board of Thoughtseizes. We've got these cool lands. Love how expressive we can be with art these days. As we do see Raja being like Blood Moon Who? Blood Moon Who fetches up a Ketria Triome to turn on the Leyline Bindings.
Flooded Strand passes the turn back for Raja. So Archmage's Charm at the ready to do something. At least 3 modes on that card, and we'll see if Raja can unlock a 4th.
Yeah, Ian's drawn for turn. We know Ian has some Griefs in hand, so it's going to have a bit more of a top-heavy hand. And looks like we've drawn a Dauthi Voidwalker, and we are going to play that for turn.
Yeah, we'll see if Raja deems that worthy of Archmage's Charm or something else.
We saw in the last game, Raja was pretty okay with sort of letting things resolve and then drawing a couple of cards. I'm curious to see if he'll do the same thing here, as we are going to see Grief evoked, discarding a Terminate. Terminate stayed in here for Ian. They're trying to catch some of those elemental creatures, as Raja is sort of tanking, like, okay, do we use the Archmage's Charm to counter this and make sure I get to keep my other cards, or am I going to draw 2 and let something else go?
And the thing now with that Voidwalker on the board is, whatever happens with this Archmage's Charm, it's going to exile with a Void counter, and so Ian will now get to use all of those many modes on Archmage's Charm himself if he sees fit.
Raja Sulaiman has a Jace the Mind Sculptor in his deck. He has 1 Teferi Hero Dominaria. Those hits are huge if that happens. Also, Raja played the Pro Tour. We might see the first ever Pro Tour Jace on coverage, Dom. What an exciting moment that could be, as we do have double Prismatic Ending Subtlety for the cards in hand along with the Polluted Delta.
That's one of those personality tests. Do you run to the dealer booth and flog that Jace for however many hundreds of dollars, or do you put it in your modern deck and plan on casting it on camera as reigning champion in your next tournament?
Not to brag, mine's in my deck. Just a little humble Jace brag there. As we do see one of the Prismatic Endings go, Ian is like, whatever on Subtlety, I'll fight through it. You've got nothing.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we see Charm does get exiled with that little dice on it as a Void counter. Good to keep track of all of that separately, so you know exactly what options are there for the Voidwalker. And yeah, both players just trading off cards left and right, and it looks like Ian has the better of it for the time being.
Yeah. I feel like we should get little Twitter symbols for the Void counter, because it's like tweeting into the Void, and then we have the Void there. We can work on that. Maybe we can get a deal with Elon. They're needing some sponsors. As it does look like Raja has drawn for the turn. It's drawn some card he wants to play. Look, it's going to be the with Prismatic Ending on that Dauthi Voidwalker. It is worth noting that Void counters are a thing that is not tied to the specific Dauthi. So if Ian draws another Voidwalker in the next turn or something, he will still be able to cast either that Prismatic Ending or Archmage's Charm once he can tap the Voidwalker. Dom, Voidwalker, Tyvar, deck, go.
I'm in. Let's go. I know you mentioned you played against this cool like Sultai deck with Tyvar and Icefang Coatl and Dauthi Voidwalker. Like, there's something there. You're like, you piqued my interest.
Yeah, Jace Friend Prodigy is another pretty good one. There's some spice going on in the streets. The people in the streets, they're ready.
I've seen some Tyvar bringing back Priest of Fellrights with haste and then maybe milling over a good target for it in the process. Like, Tyvar is a really neat card. Lot of applications to explore with that.
Yeah, as we do see Kolaghan's command evoked for the grief. Looks like Raja is going to lose his last card in hand, and we're going to have an undying effect. So now the grief's back. Raja has no spells in hand, as far as we can tell, and we have a 4-3 grief here with Menace going to start beating Raja down. Raja's got only 5 turns on the clock to answer that here. Dom, what's sort of Raja really hoping to draw in this spot?
So you can hope to draw an answer, just get the grief out of the way, and then the game is kind of even, but you have more lands, you've got the Kaheera hanging out, but maybe just something like a card draw spell or a Planeswalker to just generate some kind of more long-term advantage as well.
Yep. Looks like Raja is going to pick up the Kaheera and sort of, maybe get the first way in a blocker down for this Kaheera, but sorry, for this Dalthi, but also just get the attacks on. One thing to note, if you're an Ian fan here, is Ian's only on 2 lands, has drawn a dashed Ragavan. That's one of the best things to do on 2 lands, is to say he's kind of a lot of plays that aren't going to do much, as we do see a Ragavan getting dashed in an attack here for 6. We are going to see the top card of Raja's deck, and it looks like it was a Teferi Time Raveler. Not one Ian can cast, but one he's pretty okay with not getting played.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Ragavan in this deck is sometimes you play it on turn 1, and if it's uncontested, it runs away with the game. If it gets removed, well, that's one less removal spell for your Grief or your Dalthi Voidwalker, whatever it is. And then sometimes you have few resources in the mid game, and you draw a Ragavan, and suddenly you have this like big hasty threat that can actually do some damage.
Yeah. Raja's going to develop the Kaheera and pass the turn back to Ian. Looks like Ian. Oh, I was just untapping the grief there. Sorry, I thought he was immediately attacking. I was like, Ian's a man who has a plan. We have Blackcliff Cliffs here as the land for turn. So that's going to unlock some of the cards. We saw Kolaghan's command get evoked, so we could see a card like that here could clean up something. And looks like we're just going to dash the Ragavan into the face of the Kaheera and be like, listen, that card could come into a problem later. I'm going to try and answer it now as, oh, Raja does have Leyline Binding. That's going to answer the grief, and we get a block on the Ragavan. Raja stabilized the board.
Yeah, so now both players kind of on nothing, and we are, and that is where Raja wants to find himself. That tends to favor the control deck going long.
Yep, we will get the life totals update in a second. Raja should be at 11-ish right now between the grief and the Ragavan hitting a return ago. That will get updated for you at home. Also, big shout out to the NRG Series. Oh, well, Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, there is a boring old art, Jace the Mind Sculptor, but it turns out whatever art you play still has the same abilities, and all of those are going to be really nice for Raja here.
Yeah, Raja immediately gets the brains from draw 3, put 2 back, plays another fetch land, ready to fetch around not only a Blood Moon, but to clear the top of his deck if it's a card he doesn't want. We've seen this interaction dominate Legacy for a long time, and in these sort of New Age Modern, it's still very good, as Bolt's going to come down and target this Jace. And let's see, did Raja pick up a counterspell off his draw 3? It's looking like if he did, he doesn't want to use it, as he's going to let the Jace die. Sort of an important part of playing these counterspell decks too, right? Dom, is making sure that you're not posturing all the time you have a counterspell, but doing it in moments where it actually makes sense, where you could be doing something.
It becomes tough when you're under time pressure. We saw game 1 go pretty long, and if it goes to 3 games, maybe that's an issue. So don't want to be wasting valuable seconds pretending that you have a counterspell, which maybe the opponent just sees right through. But yeah, you want to balance your range in that sense. And Bolt taking down Jace is a little surprising, maybe, because that's a card which there aren't that many copies in the Scam deck. This isn't a 4 Bolt deck like most of them are. And also, you don't know if those bolts are even staying in the deck post-sideboard, depending on how many tools there are. So I'm sure Bolt is on Raja's radar, but it's not front and center as a looming threat. So there's a choice of, do you immediately brainstorm with the Jace? Do you try and tick up the Jace to get it out of range of the Bolt? Or maybe a Fury would be a likely card as well. Raja goes for the brainstorm and gets punished by Ian having that Bolt.
Yeah. And Ian sort of taking a moment here. It looks like Ian's drawn a Thoughtseize. He's going to cast that. Raja looks to be casting something.
Broker's Charm?
Yeah, it looks like Broker's Charm.
Hello.
Broker's Charm getting cast on camera, not just being used for Solitude there. Nice little divination mode. Can't see the cards he looks at him behind his lands. But Broker's Charm is one of the SNC charms that we've seen here before. It's got a couple weird modes. It can make you sack an enchantment. Destroy target enchantment, draw 2 cards, but also target creature gets a +1/+0 until end of turn, and then deals its damage equal to its power to something, sort of a punch effect, as we colloquially call them. As it does look like a dress down was taken from Ian here off the Thoughtseize.
Yeah, usually those last two modes are going to be your defaults there, but you can do cool things like evoke a Solitude and then with the evoke trigger on the stack, Broker's Charm to have it fight something else. So you can get tricksy with that one as well. Lot of modes on that charm too.
Yeah. Yeah, we do see Castle Lochlan. If you're going to draw a land as Ian, that's got to be one of the best ones in the deck here against a deck like Blue-White or Bant Control.
Absolutely. And this is just hardcast Solitude. No creature to exile, but Raja realizing, especially in the face of that castle, got to get something on the board, got to pressure Ian's life total, and maybe replenish my own as well.
Oh, Castle Vantress is on screen. Let's see if we got a Castle locked on. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I love the end of turn Solitude there from Raja. Raja knows, hey, I want to win this tournament. Winning this tournament means I cannot get a draw, especially in round one. So I'm going to get my Solitude in here and start my 5-turn clock. And, maybe this Castle Vantress will help us out here as Ian is activating a Castle Lochwing. Looks like Ian's going to have, I think, 3 cards in hand after that. So he's going to take another 3 down to 9. And that's going to put Ian in a pretty precarious position because, every time he activates this castle, he's not spending his mana answering the Solitude and taking a turn off the Solitude potentially being answered. Entering him.
Solitude, I think being red here, not switching sides. That one's not getting mind controlled or anything like that.
Blue Sun Zenith, standard pilled. We got that
Blue
treasure
Sun's Twilight Mason.
Blue Sun's Twilight. Oh,
come on now.
Oh no. It's so embarrassing. I can see the stupid old hearts and know them, but I can't remember the card name.
That sun is on its way out. That's the whole lore behind the Phyrexian takeover, Mason. Come on.
That is true. As we do see a Hardcast Fury here off of one of the treasures. I'm not even sure. Oh, the Ragavan made the treasure. I forgot about the Ragavan. I was like, I'm not even sure how the treasure got made. That's how awesome this game is. As we do see a Scalding Tarn fetch happen probably before the activation of Castle Vantress here. Castle Vantress, a card that's sort of contested by everyone who doesn't play blue-white for being a card in the deck, myself included there. But all the blue-white players all show up with at least one Castle Vantress. Raja Sulaiman, no exception here, has exactly one in his deck.
People love Castle Vantress, and people love to hate Castle Vantress too. You gotta pick a side there.
Yeah. What was your side, Dom?
I love it, although I love to hate it if I'm staring down at a control player, just activating it turn by turn, not doing anything, but just, dragging the game out. And they're going to win, but it's going to take another 15 minutes of my life. And those are 15 minutes I can't afford to lose at this point, Mason. I'm over the hump.
Yeah, I just turned 30 the other day, so, I'm feeling you there.
Oh, I've been there for months at this point. I can feel my back starting to just, the joints aching, and yeah, I'm over the hump.
Yeah, you see, look at Raja Sulaiman on our nice new player camps here. Good posture, young, spry in the streets. Dom and I at home with our pillows on our chairs, just barely making as we do see Season Pyromancer, a big draw here for Ian. We're gonna get dressed down in response. That's gonna make it so we don't get the discard 2 draw 2. But if Raja has to use a card like Supreme Verdict, that will still present more bodies as the game goes on.
Yeah, spry is a word that I've heard described as it is only ever used to refer to people who are old in an attempt to console them that they're actually young. And so, don't know if that applies to Raja. Certainly applies to you and me.
That is true here. As we do only have 9 minutes left in this round, we did start a little bit later today. We had a bunch of announcements at the beginning. These players are also on a different time than the rest of our players because they are in the feature match. So they have an extra minute or two. They have a minute or two later start time, but they still have that for playing. As we do see the Solitude enter the Season Pyromancer attack. So if Raja wants to win this round and set up for a win of the round in total, we need to start doing things very quickly here. Looks like we might be having a life total discrepancy. I can see them talking to our table spotter here as Ian is going to draw for the turn here and down to 8 life.
Yeah, Raja really hoping to get this game over with. And Ian's deck much better at stitching together a win in the space of 5 minutes than Raja's is if we do go to game 3.
Yeah, looks like Raja has, I think, an Aether Gust. I'm not actually sure what card that is.
Yeah, that one's vexing even me.
It's Aether Gust. Final answer. I know my promos. I'm willing to die on that hill. That's Aether Gust. Also because it's the only thing in Raja decks that does that effect besides Subtlety. But mostly because I'm very talented at looking at the cards. We do see Raja here activating a Castle Vantress, getting his Scry on.
Confession time for me. Didn't even know there was an Aether Gust promo. I'm letting the side down here.
Wow. That's okay. You can always hashtag do better. As we do see Raja looking to have two cards that he wants to keep on top. I just want to make sure I get the right ones here. Raja knows that, hey, I've got to win this game. And I just need to make sure I've got it locked up here. So probably just try and think it has two answers and figure out which one is the best one to have in hand as a pass back to Ian. And we know Ian does have that Spyro on top of the deck. Probably going to see it get played again. Second verse, same as the first. Looks like Season Pyromancer coming down. It looks like it is getting answered from Raja. Yep, Counterspell on that Season Pyromancer. So Season Pyromancer does have an activated ability in the graveyard. You can spend 5 mana in exile to make 2 1/1s. Ian will be able to do that on the next turn as a way to block this Solitude, either a double block to trade, or we can get some jump block action if we have some, other bigger plans in motion.
Teferi going up to 5 here, bouncing the Solitude. This is a pretty common line where you'll see control players, you're with Teferi or with Jace Mind Sculptor too, getting the Solitude back in hand, really limiting the opponent's ability to deploy anything and keep it around. And so, Raja finally able to lock up game 2, going to send this to a game 3. You see both players rapidly speaking out their cards. We got to get this over with. Neither player wants to pick up a draw. Raja's deck just inherently much more at danger of that.
Yeah, like Dom mentioned at the start of our show too, and you're going to see in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen here, this is round 1 of 9, Dom. We have a maxed out tournament. This is a big event. If you want to top 8 this tournament, maybe in the very last round we can shake some hands if we're undefeated. But for the most part, we need to get our W's in. It is always better when you're playing a tournament to get the wins than it is to get the draws outside of those locked up situations. So you never want to get the draw if you're playing with your opponent. It's in both of your best interests to play quickly and make sure the match comes to a natural conclusion. And we can see these players here both showing up quickly. They know that. They don't want to have that happen to them at the start of the NRG series for the 2023 year.
Yeah, Raja is hoping he gets to play 9 very long matches over the course of the day. Not much time between rounds, maybe a little time to run to the restroom, grab a snack, whatever. But he is going to play a lot of Magic today if things go according to plan. Not many free wins with a control deck like this.
Yep. As we do see, Ian's presented, Raja's getting a couple more riffles there. His deck was all sort of clumped up. And Dom, you mentioned before, Ian is someone who can win sort of in this like 6-ish minutes that we have left in this round. What does winning look like for Raja sort of in this as we've now hit the 5-minute mark left in the round?
It's doing basically the same things that we saw in game 2 and doing them at warp speed to get us to that point.
Awesome. All right. Well, with warp speeds engaged, we will do our best to keep you up play by play here. But just know that these players are going to play a little fast and loose, and you might see some shortcutting and stuff like that. That is something that's going to happen a lot in competitive Magic, especially with timing short. Cut short players are going to pass the turn while still resolving a fetch and that sort of thing. And don't worry, Twitch chat, we are on top of it. We do have a judge spotting the table right now as well, as it looks like Raja is thinking of keeping an Ian has kept and just has turn 1 Polluted Delta past the turn. No grief situation here the first time for Ian. Does look like he has a Torok in his hand though, so that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, you want to have something a little earlier in the game to kind of apply some pressure, maybe bait the counterspell out. And usually that's going to be a big turn 1 play. Ragavan, Thoughtseize, Grief plus Undying Manas. Nothing like that here. So I'm wondering what Ian has in the rest of his hand. Maybe a Voidwalker, maybe working towards a Blood Moon.
Yeah, it's hard to know for sure. Yeah, I think he maybe kept on the back of his Torok in his hand, and so it's just keyword unkillable. That might be the situation that Ian's going for here. It's a little hard to know. With our new setup of cameras, it's really sweet for the coverage of seeing the players. I love seeing the emotions and everything going on, the people in the background. Does make it a little harder to see the players' hands for our end. These players also keeping it close to the chest here, as we do see a Black Loop Cliffs and starts to cast the Torok. Now is the chance. Raja just has Raffine's Tower in play. Torok hits the battlefield, Dread Cantor. This is one of the powerful cards from H2. It has some extra abilities with Kicker, but notably in this part of the game, it is protection from white, which means none of Raja's spot removal is actually going to be able to answer this card.
Yeah, Torok can be this game-breaking mid-game threat, or it can be 2-1 for 1. You can't remove this. Let's get to work. Let's go.
Yeah, as we do see, Raja played a Windswept Heath, pass back in, played a Swamp, attacks for 2, and then looks to be passing the turn back as Raja is fetching with the Windswept Heath here. Gonna see, will Raja respect Blood Moon? Maybe not. Gonna grab the Triome here and have that Leyline Binding back on, just like we saw so pivotally in game number 2 there, was able to answer those big threats. Can't answer the Torok, though.
Yeah, and this is where I wonder if Raja does have those endurances in the deck, where that is a card which can actually jump in front of Turak and trade with it, or even here, gobble it up in combat.
Yeah, and it makes sense too, right? Like you mentioned, Endurance can block Torox. Raja knows that's a card. It's very popular and also stops the Undying effects here. As we do see Croxet cash from Ian, this is one of the Titans, Uro's little brother. And this card, can grind through a lot. So, we probably won't be able to see this card shine as much as it normally would in this matchup, but definitely really strong here, forcing Raja sort of to interact. And if Raja discards a land, it's going to take more damage. It's going to be hard to stabilize.
Yeah, Croaks are great in any kind of grindy matchup. Less so against a deck like this, where so much of the white removal does exile, and so when Croaks does come back, can be answered more cleanly. That being said, if Croaks is trading for 2 cards with its triggers and then also a removal spell, that's fine. You don't need to ask for any more than that.
Mm-hmm. Call that Ancestral Recall where I come from, Dom. That's a 3-for-1.
Yeah, before my time, I'm afraid. I'm not that old.
Well, since you're older than me, so now it's getting awkward. We see the Broker's Charm, a little Divination, a classic from Raja.
Yeah, if you get to Divination with your Broker's Charm, that means you don't need to Divination with your Archmage's Charm. So a little Splinter Twin situation emerging there.
I love Splinter Twin situations. So we do see a Polluted Delta discard to the Crocs. That's going to put Raja down to 13. The Dread Cantor actually gets a counter because something was discarded. That puts the Dread Cantor up to a 3-2 attack for 3 down to 10. Raja's under the gun as we have 2 minutes left in this round. Both players are playing very quickly. It's better to play quickie and make sure you come to a natural conclusion than it is to, play perfectly and lose to the round timer. As Ian has drawn for turn here, it is double checking some stuff and just seems to be attacking for 3 again, putting Raja down to 7. Ian, like you mentioned, Dom, can actually win this game in the time allotted.
And speaking of Splinter Twin situations, Croaksa, but also stuff like Thoughtseize and Grief, boosting the Torak to let it get through for even more damage. And looks like a really heads-up choice by Ian to have played that Torak on turn 2, where it's cracked in for upwards of 10 damage at this stage. And it's so tempting to hold that to try and get the maximum value out of it. Sometimes you got to just play that as a 2-1 for 2.
Yeah, we are going to see Raja here is actually playing the Teferi and ticking up to 5. Now he's going to be able to play his sorceries at instant speed here. And looks like he's a passing of the turn back to Ian. This might be Raja trying to set up for an instant speed Supreme Verdict. That is one of the ways to actually stop a Torak Dread Cantor. Protection from White does not stop Wrath effects. But we're going to have to see what Raja is setting up here as he does pass to Ian. Clearly wasn't down to just trade his Teferi for a redraw. So got to have some plan.
So Ian has 2 mana tapped, untapped. We'll see what he has to work with.
Does look like he has a Fury in hand. He's going to dash a Ragavan, though.
Okay, that is finally a target for whatever removal spells are left in Raja's hand.
Yeah, and you see Raja tanking. He maybe has a counterspell and a removal spell. I'm trying to think about which is the best way to sort of sequence them here. If Raja can slam a Solitude, it can't actually answer Torok, but it does have lifelink, so it essentially invalidates Torok from attacking, and will force Torok to be back on defense. That black pro-white creature. So Raja is tanking for a second. Must have a hard decision. Raja knows how important it is to be playing quickly here, so this is probably a pivotal turn. He's going to cast Counterspell on that Ragavan and save his and spot removals for something more important later.
Yeah, well, he knows as well. If that Ragavan hits, that is a 1-turn clock now with a Torak. So, shaving a turn off that with Ragavan is a big game. Raja maybe buying himself some breathing room, but that breathing room is only to find an answer to the Torak. There aren't that many of those, and if you don't find one, you're going to be dead sooner or later.
Yeah, it looks like there's a dice in the middle of the screen here. I'm going to assume that means we have hit turns. We'll try and get an exact clarification on that here, but that seems to be the case, as we do have Jace, the Mind Sculptor, coming down, and that's the way to unsummon the Torak. We are in turns. So, yeah, the green dice at the top of your screen is going to represent what turn we are in turns, and Jace, -1, return target creature to its owner's hand. So now the Torak is off the board, and it won't be able to stick on the board for the remainder of the game, Dom. Raja might not be able to win, but he might be able to not lose.
Yeah, you mentioned Ian has a Fury in hand, so we'll see. Torak can be kicked now. We'll see if Raja has the answer there on the sack, or no, I guess we're just going for the Ragavan.
Yeah, it looks like Ian's going to try and stick Ragavan, and I like this from Ian. Ian's like, look, I have to try and win the game, so I'm going to try and win the game. He might have another red card as well for the Fury in hand. We can't quite see it, so this might just even be a bait situation where Raja's like, yeah, I've got to counter the Ragavan. I don't want to lose the game to that. And then we see a Fury come down, and then Torok on the last couple turn cycles. So we'll have to see exactly what Ian's plan is, as he is attacking Raja with the Ragavan, as it looks like Prismatic Ending is going to be cast from Raja thanks to the tick up of Teferi Time Raveler. Then you cast sorceries at instant speed.
Yeah, if there was that Fury, I wonder if it's better for Ian to cake the Torak, try and get everything from Raja's hand, and then Fury exiling the Ragavan to kill the Jace, still have a 1-turn clock, get anything else out of Raja's hand there. But yeah, Ian takes the more immediate line. So we're going to exile Terminate, going to deal with the Jace, and eat away at the Teferi as well.
Yeah, and it looks like we're about to see Ian cast a card here. We're gonna, after this game though, we're not gonna have any backup future matches. Unfortunately for this round, we did see the whole of Raja versus Ian here, but we have a bunch more matches of Magic for you today. We're still gonna have 8 more rounds of Magic after this, and our first round of top 8. So get excited. Also, tomorrow morning, we're going to have the rest of our top 4 finals and our Pioneer 5K. So if you haven't already, click that follow button. That way you don't miss any of the action here. As we do see Raja is looking to minus his Teferi, probably on nothing here since there don't seem to be any targets, just to draw a card. It is turn 3 of turn, so Raja just needs to live through Ian's turn. We mentioned before how it's better to sort of win, but in this spot, unfortunately, Raja can't win. So the best thing he can try and do for himself is get the draw on the 1 point, despite it being not the best case scenario overall, as Ian draws for the turn. If Ian has like a dash Ragavan and there's no answer from Raja, we could see Ian steal this game as Takanuma's played for the turn.
Yeah, it seems like if we had gone for the kick Torak play last turn, then we potentially would be in a position to just attack with the Torak, win the game here and now. Ian opted for the line that let him deploy more spells from his hand, but it looks like it may come back to bite him here.
Yeah, and Ian's got Raja down to 2, so Lightning Bolt always in out in these spots. As we see, Ian's tapping a red.
Oh, here we go,
Lightning Bolt. And Raja, looking at his hand, I have to think if he had a counterspell, maybe he has 2 and you think about what to do. Raja's tanking. That eyebrow went up. I love the player cam. I get to see what's going on in their faces there as Raja's in the tank. And once again, Dom, if it's only 1 counterspell, it's a forced play. He knows it. Raja's had plenty of camera time. There's no way he's jealous on that. And he's leaning forward. Yeah. I think it might have been gotten here by Ian.
There's no choice. If you have a counterspell, you got to use it. So now is there a way I can magically conjure up some answer to this? And it looks like I think Ian has just snatched victory from the jaws of defeat here.
Yeah, and maybe Raja has a dress down, and that's what Raja is thinking about, dress down. It might be Dom, he has a dress down and a Broker's Charm in hand. He's trying to figure out what's the best thing to do to find the best counterspell, right? One lets you do Archmage's Charm, one let you do Counterspell.
Oh, there is?
And it is Counterspell. All right.
Okay, so we just had it, so.
Is this a Kolaghan's command? Oh, it's another kick Torak. Okay.
But this is going to get us to turn 5 of turns, it looks like. So agonizingly close, but maybe just short. We'll see if both these players do know each other. You see the RIW hobby shirt, very well-known store in Michigan there for Raja. Ian from the same area, from the same store. So these guys know each other. They're friendly. We'll see if they think, okay, given 1 or 2 more turns, this is how the match would have concluded. That's how we want it to conclude. But of course, no obligation to do that. We'll see what the official outcome is there.
Yeah, as we do see Raja tapping 3 mana, taking a look over there. And you got to wonder, too, if Ian had, gone for the kick Torak in the main phase, how things would be different on this turn as Raja draws 2 cards off Archmage's Charm. I wonder if... I have a curious question, Dom. We put the dice on 1, but was that 1 or was that 0 because we just don't have a dice with 0? Do you know what I mean? Like, does Ian have another turn here? Because I think that maybe what's happened is we're representing turn 0 as turn 1, because Raja isn't someone who would just play this turn out for no reason. The turn die is correct. Okay, so it looks like maybe there's some conversation about like who would win here happening. I'm not sure, but it looks like it's most likely going to be a draw here from both players, as we do have a Subtlety in hand. and some Solitudes and stuff. Not exactly sure what's going on. Some conversation happening for sure.
Notably, Subtlety, another card that it's not white. That's a 3/3 flash. You can just play that, put it in front of the Turak, and that's your answer potentially. But
Yeah,
as our players discuss final proceedings here, we will bring you back to the booth here as we finally finish round one. That was a long one, and we've got 8 more to go here, Mason. So strap in, buckle up.
I can't wait. Modern's my favorite format. I love watching it. We see so many cool decks. We're going to see so many cool decks today. And the format is still being figured out. It's still adapting. It's still evolving. We see classics like Bant Control. We see new classics like Rakdos Scam. Like you mentioned, Rhinos is on the uptick. I can't wait to see all these different decks. We are going to take a quick break real quick. We'll be back in just about 2 minutes. So go get some water. Come on back. Follow the channel if you haven't already. And we'll have more magic ready for you in just a few minutes.